in Meghalaya, this is the sad state of affairs, that matters will be straightened only when the judiciary intervenes.
This issue has come up because of lack of creation of jobs.
It has become a political issue. We cannot go back on this. I think we have to sit as leaders.
We need to look objectively. It's not about discriminating any community.
Why do till now our reservation is just a policy? It's just a resolution. Why it has not made into a law?
So you're saying adequacy is now there, right? 93% of the jobs are with the ST. So they no need for reservation.
That is your logic.
No,
I'm telling.
That's your logic. That's
No,
not my
it's not
logic.
my logic. You're telling.
Let me explain to you my logic. Because
how
of reservation, they were there.
Sir,
if there is no reservation, they will not be there.
Bhah Kharlukhi just stated that in the recent MPS, the Khasis, they were placed in the underserved category.
Yes.
So how can
let me come.
Kublai palok sa shisin gi pedang sngbai pi shakan ke program ke jongi ke bangi ai ke teng ke Rynsan Iathir ke program ke bangi kren ngiathir bat ngi emerging modal ki mat ki bapher ki bakta ke imlang ke salang ke jongi bat minta genti hakan ke episode ngi kren halor kata ka state reservation policy lani kata ka Bhah Iohkam Iohkam ha ke jylla ke jongi but ha ke parliamentas ngi doni ki nongmihkhmat jong ki seng sai pathai bapher bakum jurui kiwei ki riewshemphang ti shakadiang ke jonga ngan pen itu iping ipediang sngobha ya i Dr. Mukul Sangma i belong unong yalam jong kaliang persya haga jogupor uhe jong ka seng TMC ni don ru ya iba Dr. Batskhem Myrboh i bede u nong aiktien jong ka seng Voice of the People Party nang tangi don ru ya iba Roy Kupar Synrem i belong uwe na ki noy saj an jong ka jylla haga jogupor i president jong ka Hinyau Tribe Youth Council nang tash kamon ga jonga ngidon ye Dr. WR Kharlukhi ibadai UMP jong ka Rajya Sabha haga jokapor nong yalam baru he jong ka seng NPP nang tangi don ye Dr. Jemino Mawthoh ibadai nong yalam he jong ka seng United Democratic Party but ngidon ru ye Dr. Bhoktura Mauro ibelong uwe ni columnist haga jylla ga jongi ti kumangan chupin tip iki parlok jongi hangni ba kani ke program ke jongi kan dia tin pareng bara tin khasi nama ki don katu kan ningot ki panelist ha kani ke panel jongi ki bam nang ban kan yak tin khasi na kata ka daw ba ki wei ru ki nyok jingmen to ngin pendon kam lak tin pareng ba khaju ke por tin khasi so just to inform our viewers that this panel discussion will be in English and in Khasi for the benefit and for the interest of our non-Khasi speaking panelists and also our viewers. So I take this opportunity to welcome our panelists. I know I'm the only woman in this panel. It's unfortunate. We have tried, despite our effort, to get women panelists, but we couldn't. So we'll carry ahead with this discussion.
But you are the anchor, the boss.
Yeah. Ti kajinga kran kajangi halor state reservation policy. Kumbangi tip ba kani ka state reservation policy lani ka Bhah Iohkam Iohkam. Kalawan long stam haga jylla ga jongi kata haga usnam khat khandai Spanya puar haga por baga jylla thau ga jylla Meghalaya but ya kani ka policy la pinwan dor ban pin ko bor ki try muluk haga jylla ga jongi haga liang ka yokakot but kiwei ki benta ke imlang ka salang Henry ki bun ki jing ki padon haga ni ka policy namar kumbangi tip hi ba kani ka policy ka Bhah prapusan nakashispa Hagikam sarkap kiwei de ki chakapuli ngan chuai ka jing phia hangni ka long sao phau na ka shispa na gmenta ki khasi jaintia sao phau na ka shispa na gmenta ki garo san na ka shispa na gmenta ki wei pat ki jai bin rio rot pan but khat san na ka shispa na gmenta ki general category na ni kita ki pat ki jai bin rio ki bam dei ki ret pat. So the state reservation policy is not just a legislative framework. It is the lifeblood of many indigenous communities who rely on it for fair access to opportunity, empowerment and representation. However, this policy is at the center of an escalating conflict between communities who feel marginalized and those who are fighting to maintain a fair share of the pie. So the current imbroglio stems out of the introduction of the roster system in the allocation of reserved positions. As you all know that the roster system was implemented to ensure or to address concerns about uneven distribution of the reserved post among communities. And in this panel discussion, we will dive deeper into not just the legalities, but also the emotional stakes that the state reservation policy has, highlighting the socio-economic and the legal complexities that tie the future of Meghalaya's indigenous community to this policy. So as our panelists, distinguished panelists, debate on this policy, they are also confronted with one deeper question. Can this policy ensure that there is a fair share of all the fair share in the distribution of seats and the position? Can Meghalaya's future be built in a compromised and fair and shared dreams, or will it continue to be mired in division and conflict? So I would like to direct the first question to the party who recently raked up this issue, the Voice of the People Party. So, Dr. Myrboh, the Voice of the People Party had called for a merit-based approach that aligned with the current demographic realities. So, do you think this model, this merit-based model or approach, will there be any potential for a division among the different communities, and can it be like the Khasi, Jaintia and the Garo community, find a common ground if we stick to this merit principle?
Thank you, Kongiwan, for that question. When you talk about merit, actually the Voice of the People Party, we don't talk about it. Rather, when we see this policy, when we read it, actually the Voice of the People Party is I would say the latest entry into this whole matter. This matter was not a new one. It has been there right from before. And if you remember correctly, the political history of the state of Meghalaya, way back in 1998, when the UDP contested the election for the first time, that was that discussion and that kind of an attempt to review the reservation policy was very much there in the UDP government also. Therefore, to say that to attribute this matter only to the BPP is very wrong. And in fact, BPP, the only difference between the BPP and the other political parties is we pursue this matter rigorously, and we don't believe that this matter should only be used during election. When we believe that it has to be, corrected on the basis of what is written in the policy itself. We don't go out of the, what is written in the policy. If you see the para 1 of the policy, it talks about the the proportion of population. So out of that only. So when we and in fact when we see this one, we understand that this policy, reservation policy, has so many things in it. For example, it clubbed together the the ST and even the SC population, and the SC population in Meghalaya is very small. It is not even 2%, while the other ST population also is even small. Is also small. And if you take together these two communities also, which in fact even the clubbing together lacks even logic also, they are much less than 5%. But here we give them 5%. So when you talk about this policy, as I said, also it has a problem. It has a problem. Thank God. I would say that we thank the judiciary in Meghalaya. This is the state of affairs, that matters will be straightened only when the judiciary intervenes. This job reservation policy, as well as the roster system, should have been implemented way back in the 1990s or even earlier than that, because when you talk about job reservation policy, it cannot go away from the roster system. So here, when you talk about this job reservation policy, I will answer your question. It will lead to a kind of a division, a kind of misunderstanding between the two communities. I'm telling you, and I'm confident also that the people of Meghalaya, they are matured people. They know what is right and what is wrong. You see, when we talk about this, we also from the BPP, mind you, we are not we are not succumbing to the kind of, the popular sentiment that is there in Khasi Hills that there should be 80% combined reservation for the Khasis and the Garos. We know the practical difficulties, and therefore we don't agree also to the 80% because we are sensitive. We understand the sentiments of our brothers and sisters in Garo Hills also, and therefore we simply say that this reservation policy should be based as per the structure of the population, and without undermining and without snatching away the rights of of each of the communities.
Okay, I'll come to Dr. Mukul. Sir, Batskhem had spoken about the population. But there are many groups in Garo Hills who argue that, all these years the Garos have been underrepresented, and there are many people, section of people are still being deprived. How do you see it? How do you look at this? And when during your tenure as the Chief Minister, also did you face similar pressure from different groups to review the policy?
Yeah, my greetings to all friends. And I usually subscribe to the idea of not discussing this issue even in the House. Forget about discussing it outside the House. This is the strategy that we have adopted all along, even during my time. Whenever any issue pertaining to this, which is to a great extent considered as, I don't say it is contentious, but it is sensitive. And therefore, having gone through the whole policy which was adopted and which has been in the process of implementation since the inception of the state, I think we stand to take pride in the decision of our framers of this policy based on the mandate of the Constitution. Now, usually when this issue is brought into the House, what we used to do is we discuss amongst ourselves and we prevail upon all our political partners, the leaders who represent the different political parties who have members in the August House, not to discuss this issue further in the House, because there are chances where individual members can act like a freelancers, because in the House you will always have people representing different political parties, also some independents, So therefore, it is more or less an issue of proper implementation of the policy in letter and spirit. How we ensure that the intent with which this whole policy has been adopted, the overall effectuation of this intent of the policy. How do you really implement this without creating such a situation where people will stand questioning our implementation process? I agree that in the past, over the successive governments, there has been certain things which could have been avoided, certain dislocation in the process of implementation of this. We did correct. Even during my time, we did take measures to correct the whole approach for implementation of this policy. For one example, every interview, whenever to fill up any existing vacancy, whenever interview was called, whether it is by MPSC or whether by district selection committees of different respective districts, we made it mandatory to ensure that a number of vacancies are indicated. And the total number of successful candidates who would be declared as have been passed in the particular interview for recruitment is exactly which commensurate with the exact number of the vacancy indicated in the advertisement. No waiting list. Prior to that, there was waiting list. So there are many instances where the whole policy could have been manipulated, and it was manipulated also. That was the reason why I think people didn't understand what exactly was the main root cause. But I understood that the root cause was that particular issue. That's why you show when we took this bold decision, there was of course aggrieved parties who were in the waiting list, who wanted them their validity of the period of that particular list of successful candidates to be extended, because when I am talking about the list of these successful candidates, I am referring to the successful candidates which were clubbed in the so-called waiting list category. There is no chances of waiting list. There cannot be a waiting list. It has to be, if the vacancy is 10, the total number of successful candidates are 10. It should be like that.
Thank you, sir. I'll come to Dr. Kharlukhi. Sir, as a representative of a ruling party, how do you address the growing concern among the Khasi Jaintia community regarding, the implementation of the roster system, because they feel that it has failed them? Can you justify, keeping this 40-40 ratio, that split, without disturbing, that balance?
You see, I think the roster system, it comes out from the court. And I think the court, after finding that, most of the vacancy of Garo friends were not filled by this, like the, as per the reservation policy. I think that's why the situation comes that there are times when they are getting more. And I'll tell you, with this, I'm telling you what is done even today. Even today, like just the MPS exam came out. It is 14 posts, 5 Khasi, 5 Garo. It went to Khasi in Jaintia. Before this, I'll tell you that even like before this issue was raised, before it comes from the court, even there are times when Garo candidate did not pass. It was filled up by our own people. That I'm speaking with knowledge. Because when we say, especially when we talk about this, we have to do some investigation. It's not that we just speak on hearsay. Okay. So, okay, forget about that. The government had come up with a commission with a Chief Justice. So I'd like to put a question to Dr. Myrboh and Sir. Dr. Myrboh, because I know whatever that one of the demand is on the population. Okay, suppose if the commission comes out with yes, we agree with the demand that it should be based on population. Yes, it's okay. Suppose the commission said it's status quo. What will happen? Then, sir, suppose if the commission say it's status quo, it's okay. But suppose it come out that no with population, I want to know what will happen.
What will be the stand?
What will be the stand?
Yeah.
I think before we go further, it'll be only appropriate to take note of this particular point which I would like to share. Now, why did I say that in all these years in the past, we have taken a decision, a conscious decision, which was more or less, a built-up consensus within the House, without taking it into the floor of the House, within the four walls of the, whether it is in the room of the ruling party or in the room of the Speaker. We used to have that exercise, all through these years. Now, why I'm saying is, the mandate of the Constitution, we have this whole mandate based on what is reflected in your Article 16, Clause 4. Now, therefore, what is the provision? If you go through the content of that very specific provision of the Constitution, which is the mandate for the legislature to proceed further for taking any decision to provide reservation. So, we'll have to go by that. That is the mandate. That particular provision of the Constitution has empowered us to take a decision in the form of legislation. This whole provision is governed by that particular, how do you interpret that? You have to be very careful. There is something which I have been sharing with my friends. It is a question of adequate representation, you see. Provision is that provided the government, in the opinion of the state government, members belonging to that particular group or community is not adequately represented in the services under the state government. Adequacy. It's not question of proportionate or otherwise. To ensure that inadequacy is made adequate.
Okay.
So just one point, sir. Yes. What you said is correct. While the cat is in the bag, let us be very frank among us. Now the cat is out of the bag. It has become an issue in the Khasi Jaint Hills. So that's why I'm saying that.
So I would like to pose this question to Dr. Jemino. Like Dr. Mukul had mentioned that, there should be adequate representation. But we've seen and we have heard many experts speak on this line, saying that if we look at it, let's say 40 years ago, where most of the seats are being filled by the tribals from the Khasi and Jaintia community, and thereby the seats that have not been filled by the Garo community because they were not able to clear the examination or the interviews, and that is why they have to fill those posts, especially when it comes to the district. So in those cases, how can you justify, sir?
At the outset, I would like to express my thanks to you for inviting me also to be part of this panel. Privileged to be in the presence of prominent leaders in the state, Dr. Mukul, Dr. Kharlukhi, Dr. Batskhem, Roy, and Mr. Mawthoh. The issue of reservation is a contentious issue, as we all know. And it has been the demand of many organizations, political parties and other stakeholders, and even individuals to review the reservation policy in the state of Meghalaya. Now, why is the demand coming from these different groups? It is because the perception of the people at large is that there is something amiss, something wrong with this reservation policy. And maybe because of this, all other political parties also have put it in their manifesto also to review the reservation policy. Reviewing means we look objectively at this reservation policy. Now, following the High Court order to implement the roster system, to adhere to the letter and spirit of the reservation policy, the government was shaken up. And it was at that point of time that we as a party also had given our suggestions to the government. We had done due diligence. In fact, the government had called a meeting on the 31st of May, all political parties, to solicit their views and opinions. And after that, all political parties and other stakeholders were asked to submit their observations. And accordingly, from our side, as a party, we had sat for 14 meetings. We had sat in 14 meetings by consulting legal experts, academicians, and other stakeholders. And like I said, it is a contentious issue. It is not easy also to come up with a solution, that will not, that will be acceptable to all the stakeholders in the state of Meghalaya. But somehow, we have done due diligence to it. And on the 14th of July, last year, 2023, we were the first political party who had submitted the suggestion with regards to the roster system, and we had given 8 observations with regards to this reservation policy. Now, having said this, like I said, we need to look objectively. It's not about discriminating any community. I mean, that has to be very clear. We have been together with the Garos, the Khasis and Jaintias, and other communities also. We have fought together for the hill state. We were together, and it is in the wisdom of our political leaders at that point of time to frame this policy for the benefit of the tribal communities in the state of Meghalaya. But over the years, because of the implementation or because of the shortcomings or because of the loopholes that are there, that's why there's a cry from so many stakeholders that why not discuss, why not deliberate, why not dialogue on this and come up with something which will be acceptable to all the communities in the state of Meghalaya. See, for us, we have done due diligence, we have done our part, and we have given our suggestion. And this time when the expert committee had asked for the suggestions, we had given the same suggestions which we had given last year. So we had taken a lot of pain to deliberate on this issue, and we thought that, maybe with the involvement of other stakeholders and knowledgeable people in the state of Meghalaya, we'll be able to come up with a framework that will be acceptable to everybody.
Yes, exactly. Bhakturam, you've seen how emotionally charged this issue is. Do you really think that this is only just about jobs or opportunities, or do you think it reflects the deeper concern or deeper lack of trust between the different communities in the state?
Thank you very much for calling me here today. I think before I go into that, maybe that my answer will be part of that. First of all, let's look at statistics, because we cannot talk in the air. We have to look at statistics. What does statistics say? Report on census of Meghalaya state government employees. Of the jobs that are there in Meghalaya, in government jobs, 93% are with the ST. So basically, 85% reservation, 15% is for general category. But we see that 93% is the ST. So ST people are very highly represented in the government jobs. Out of that, again, then we see among the different ST categories, okay, who has the most share. When you take only the ST category, Khasis have 62% of the jobs, Garo has 35%. And when you combine it in the total number of jobs, we take the general jobs and the ST job, Khasi come to 58% of the job. And in terms of MCS officers being promoted over the years, 75% of the time when MCS officer is promoted, he's a Khasi, or he or she is a Khasi. Garo only 3%. So look at all these statistics now. Over the years, Garos have been given 40%, but never have been able to fill it up. Maybe they were not advanced enough at that point of time. Now you see that somehow I feel like they know, we can fill it up. Now education is also quite better. Now we are more, I would say, more qualified, so we can fill those jobs up. Now you're telling me 40 years, for 50 years we had the reservation policy, 40%. We never got that. Now we're trying to get it. Now you're telling me no, it has to be based on population. Let's agree that yes, population is a criteria, which is not the criteria actually. If you look into the various judgments, there are two judgments. Recently it came out, the Bihar judgment on reservation and the Supreme Court judgment on your subclassification. In both those judgments, they have talked about the rationale for reservation. There are three rationale. Backwardness. Is that community backward? Secondly, adequacy of representation. It's not proportional, it's adequacy. And why adequacy is so important? Because if you look at Article 16.4, it talks about adequacy. Then you come to Article 16.4-B. It talks about that any vacancies which have been left for this year, when they are carried over, they should not violate the 50% ceiling. Now why 50% ceiling? This is because the court 1991 thought, because this, if you go beyond 50%, it will break the constitutional provision. Now why did that provision was there for the first place? You have to listen to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. What did he say in the Constitutional Assembly debate? He said this. For example, suppose in a place, let's say Meghalaya, there are 70% people who are backward and they never had a share in the job. Now they said, you know what, please reserve 70% of the seat for us. Will that be fair? He said no. 70% of the seat cannot be reserved for the backward community because 30% is too less, because then 30% is because that it will violate the clause of equality. Because then equality is the basis why we have reservation, because equality of opportunity. You cannot treat unequals as equals. So therefore you have reservation, but that reservation cannot violate the clause 16.1, which is about equality. So therefore it should be for a limited amount of seats, which means a minority of seats. Minority meant 30%, 33%, didn't mean 50%. But what they saw in 1991 was that when the OBC case came up in the Mandal Commission, they found that OBC population in India, they need reservation. But their population themselves were more than 50%. If you combine 50% from OBC, then 22% from SC, ST, it becomes 75%. The court said no. If we do that, if we allow that, then the clause of equality will be violated. So reservation comes because we want to bring equality. How can you violate equality? So therefore the 50% ceiling came in. And therefore in the Bihar judgment also they said 50% ceiling. Even the three criteria for giving reservation, which is your backwardness, adequacy and efficiency of administration. So therefore when they had no candidate, yes, you can take other candidates. But now you have the subclassification also coming up. They said Indira Swamy. Indira Swamy had already said, if you have two categories, both backward, but one, let's say, is more advanced than the other, if you club them together, what's going to happen is that the more advanced will take away all the share. If we had done 80% in 1970, when Meghalaya had the reservation policy, the Khasi would take all the Garo share. We know that, we all know that, we cannot deny that. Even now it's happening. If you have no roster, the Khasi will take most of the share for the Garo. Because even till now, I said the Garo need a lot of support. Now, in that scenario, I don't see any rationale. I'm looking at the judgment, the Bihar judgment, recent judgment, then I'm looking at the subclassification judgment, recent judgment. They're clearly saying it is based on adequacy, not on proportion. So even if you take this thing now, take it forward, go to the court. You should go to the court. I think you should challenge in the court. Go and challenge in the court and show that you are right. And we should see what happens. What happens if the court says, you know what, you have broken the law because proportion is not supposed to be a criteria. You have given proportion as a criteria. So what do we do now? Your reservation policy now is, let's say, invalid. Bring a new policy. In the new policy, 40% guaranteed Khasi reservation, will it be there? Is there a guarantee will be there? If there is a guarantee will be there, fine, go to the court. If there is no guarantee, if the court says, no, we have to bring it down, when you say adequacy, what does it mean? 50% also is adequate. Because if I get 50% of the reservation, 20-30% I'll get by merit also. So I'm adequate. In Bihar, what happened? They found that 80% of the population in Bihar is backward. Therefore, the government said, you know what? We need to increase the reservation beyond 50%. But the court says 63%. Your reservation are backward. The people in the backward community are 63%. You're adequate. Why do you need to increase the reservation policy? In Meghalaya, it's 93% ST. So on what basis are we going to claim reservation based on population? The constitution doesn't allow that. The recent judgments don't allow that. So what is this happening? So I'm confused. What is happening here? I mean, for the last 1 year I've been having this issue. Is it based on any kind of understanding? Because as far as I can see, I don't see any point in that. You just go forward, you just create halagulla, and we'll keep reading it.
That is why I'm saying, because there's a whole lot of confusion among the different stakeholders, the people at large in the state of Meghalaya. That's why we need to look at things objectively. You bring out these statistics and all that, that is all right, that is fine. I'm also looking at it from the practical point of view, realistically. What is really happening in the state of Meghalaya? You're very right. We have to look at the disadvantaged group. We have to look at the marginalized group when we talk about reservation. We also have been in the thick of things, okay, when it comes to employment, reservation and all that. But this is where we have to, come up with something that will not confuse the people more. Right. And if you talk about the yardsticks, what about this 103rd Amendment about the economically weaker section and all that? That is again the interpretation of the court. Right, I'm just saying.
Since we're talking about judgment, I'm going to ask a question to Bhah Roy because he's also a lawyer by profession. So Bhah Roy, we know that the policies exceeding of the Supreme Court's 50% reservation cap has thrown it also into a legal limbo. Isn't it like the law should guide a policy, or because it seems like how can you justify in Meghalaya that we need that 80% reservation for the ST?
First of all, thank you for calling me into this program and to all the panelists. See, if we look at the judgments, the several judgments, of course the Indra Sawhney case said, the Supreme Court said that you cannot go beyond 50%. But then by coming of the 103rd Amendment with the 10% for the EWS, the reservation now has gone up to 60%. And I agree that the reservation should be for adequate representation. That is fine what is written in Article 16. But it said adequate representation of the scheduled castes or scheduled tribes. Now in our states, it's adequate representation in the government jobs. So when you talk about scheduled tribes in our state, which speaks about a common group of people like Khasi, Jaintia and Garos. We cannot differentiate between two groups. Of course, the Supreme Court recently has said there can be sub-classification also. But what I feel is that I feel disappointed is that with our leaders. So why do till now our reservation is just a policy? It's just a resolution. Why it has not made into a law? Had it been made into a law, the state legislature can take a protection under the 9th schedule to the constitution, just like what Tamil Nadu has done. Tamil Nadu, when it passed its law to provide reservation up to 69%, it wrote to the central government and passed, and that particular law was put into the 9th schedule, where the judiciary cannot interfere with that particular law. So why did Meghalaya does the same thing? If we talks about the Dr. Mukul has said, you cannot talk it in public. Someone may see it and then someone may go to court. Yes, it is true. But then now we are in the 50 years after statehood. How much can we hide? We have to look at the reality. Someone someday will go to court. We cannot hide from that. But then we have to take the protection of the constitution also. You have the 9th schedule, where the state legislature can write to the central government and then put it under the 9th schedule, where the judiciary cannot even interfere, just like what they did with the Tamil Nadu reservation policy. Tamil Nadu has provided 69% reservation. Because it is put under the 9th schedule, Article 14, equality before law, is not, being challenged. So I think the legislature has to look into that aspect also. Of course, there are many legalities, there are many formalities to be done. But I think if we have, as Dr. Mukul has said, if all the legislators, 60 legislators in the state, take one decision that we should pass an act, bringing in an act for the reservation policy in the state, be it 80% or whatever, 85%, I think we have the protection under the Constitution, the 9th schedule. So that is what I want to say.
I think, just one thing, okay. I think in terms of, for example, we talk about the EWS, right? It doesn't come under 16.4. It comes outside 16.4. So it is not. It's, so the 50% ceiling was 16.4, not for EWS. That is separate. So they don't clash with each other. You know, it's like regarding the 9th schedule. If not mistaken, maybe you'll be more knowledgeable than me in that. I have heard from my friends who also know law that there, I think you can now, the court can intervene in 9th schedule also. I think there is something happening on that ground. So I don't think 9th schedule is a protection if you think it is a protection.
See, it depends from case to case. Of course, now with the recent judgment, the courts can look into a particular law that is put under the 9th schedule. But to tell you, there are around 284 laws that have been put under the 9th schedule that cannot be interfered by a judiciary. So why one of the law and act of the reservation policy of our state also be put into that? I mean that, of course, at the end of the day, it depends on the political will of the state as well as the center. But that is one of the protection that can be given to our reservation policy.
So
I think I need to come. Yeah, I need to come with a caveat on this. There will always be a reason for people to question, why political parties cannot come together and take cognizance of this concern of the people and decide for once for all. Here, as we all know, let us not take judiciary for granted, nor shall we take the parliament for granted. It is something which, when goes beyond your power, when it goes beyond your legislative jurisdiction, then you will be at the mercy of parliament and judiciary. That is one part. That is a big rider, and that is precisely why when we discuss about this issue, we always take cognizance of this necessity to have that caveat, the rider. Even let us not take our own legislature for granted. How the legislature will behave, how the members, respective members representing different political parties, also I have referred to some freelancers can be there, also independents and others. So we have to always look at what is best under the prevailing circumstances. Now, why I refer to that issue of adequacy? Because the whole mandate of that Article 16, Clause 4 revolves around the issue of taking cognizance of inadequacy. If there is inadequacy, then make it adequate. That is the mandate. Beyond this, you can't go. Now, let us go back to 50 years back. The state has already crossed 50 years after the creation. At that point of time, this particular decision which was an offshoot of collective exhaustive discussion and due diligence, it's a culmination of that exercise. We must, for that matter, I personally feel that yes, we take cognizance of their sincere and committed and collective effort, which has enabled us to do good in respect of this so-called inadequacy of our people representing in the services under the government. That time, we didn't have people. That time, when I was growing up, I did not see our Garos as officers. Even that your so-called subordinate engineers, some grade 3 employees, they were all belonging to other communities, because we inherited after the creation of the state whatever was there from Assam. Our people who opted to stay with Meghalaya, they opted, so that provision was there. So I think what is important therefore is which is the which gives us this mandate to decide. So go back to that 16.4, Article 16.4. It also has to be again taken in collaboration with other provisions of the Constitution, the Part 4 of the Constitution of India, because it has to be seen from other contexts, not only in isolation. If we go by isolation, when there is some situation where you give an opportunity for judicial intervention. Now, this at least as far as the present circumstances is concerned, I would say that the situation has not gone to that extent where there can be an apprehension of judicial intervention. Whenever there has been an intervention from the judiciary, whether it is, forget about the laws passed, whether by laws passed by the state legislature or by the parliament, even in the matter of interpretation of the constitution, you look at how many constitutional interpretations have been some of the offshoot of the judgment of the court based on their observation, because nothing is taken in isolation. They are all interconnected. That is precisely the reason why I am saying that if we are talking about, if in the opinion of the government, the members belonging to that particular community, in our respect to our ST community, are not adequately represented in the services under the state government. Now, when you go by that, then the whole issue of the datas come. Datas cannot be hidden. When these datas come, then how will you protect? How will you protect this piece of policy? So, my point is, that's the reason precisely why we say leave it as it is as till now, and let us take cognizance of the need to create the kind of opportunities for the people which revolves around creating more jobs. This issue has come up because of lack of creation of jobs. This job reservation policy is not the issue. The main issue is the lack of new creation of job opportunities, whether it is in government sector or whether it is outside. We have to look at that angle. Let us be really honest towards this responsibility that is vested upon all of us. Otherwise, we will do only injustice by just discussing on this, and we will unnecessarily, land up where we don't know. Like what Dr. Kharlukhi has, in a subtle way, say it. The cat is out. Okay.
Yeah.
I think
so,
to add just one point to what Myrboh stated about statistics and Dr. Mukul stated. The problem is with the policy. The policy allow, just what like Dr. Kharlukhi said, policy allow that in cases where our Garu friend is not, qualified to take up a particular post, or there is a deficiency of numbers, then it allows other members from other tribes, like the Khasi Jaintia, to take over that post. So that's why you have that inconsistency when it comes, we have now about 60% taking up the jobs and all of that. So the policy allows. So the problem, you cannot carry it over for more than 2 or 3 years. That the policy is that. So the problem lies in the policy. So now how do you move forward with this? It depends on the government and the expert committee that is formed by the government. But I think to say that the Khasis or the Jaintias have taken over the whole thing of the Garus, that is not the right way to put it.
It is not the problem with the policy. Yeah. The problem is the process of implementation. You see,
that is
it's not
the
with
roster
the policy.
System, the roster.
The policy is completely in sync with whatever is mandated by the constitution.
So about Batskhem.
Okay, you have talked so much about the adequacy. I want to stress on this. Meghalaya has attained 50 years of statehood. There is a provision of reservation according to the original plan was only up to 1960. So if we go by that adequacy argument, in Meghalaya the tribals have been adequately represented by now. When you quoted when Mawthoh quoted the statistics, he said about 35% they are filled by the Garus. The Garus also, that is the population in the state. So in no way it is underrepresented. And therefore, if we go by that logic of adequacy, which have been harped upon again and again by our, the opponents to this demand of reservation policy review, I would say that by that logic, we need to scrap even the reservation in Meghalaya. Do you mean to say by the, that when you say, when you say adequacy, when you talk about adequacy, we have already been adequately represented by now. And as you said, the Jylla tribe have been represented by nearly 60%, according, by your statistics. And therefore, there is no question of underrepresentation by now. And therefore, the original idea that the constitution of having adequate representation is achieved, and therefore we don't need reservation.
So
that
you
is your
support
logic.
the reviewing of the policy.
That is your logic.
Let me try to
I
understand
don't-
that.
Let me try to come to.
let me because according because this policy, this according to the Constitution of India, that reservation was made for adequate representation. But I said, since we have been achieving that objective long time back, so we need to end it. Do you mean to say that?
I didn't.
No, you mean to say that.
When you are
and
trying to
therefore
put
you
words in
have
my
to
mouth. No,
you
I didn't
have
mean to say
to
that.
bear
So let's say,
responsibility
for example,
of the implications of what you said also.
We end the reservation policy.
And also here, I want to correct what Kharlukhi said. The court intervened, in this matter leading to the implementation of the roster system, not because, there were more Khasis, less Garus passing in the particular exam, but because regarding the, the promotion, there was a confusion regarding the promotion. There was a conflict, a contradiction between, in the rules of the personnel, and therefore the rules of the personnel was creating a confusion that ultimately led to the court intervention, filing of the matter in the court, and ultimately to the court intervention. Had it not been because of the promotional problem, the matter also would not have been gone to the court. And again, here I am saying, this demand for the review of the policy should have come long time back, not from Khasi Hills. It should have come long time back from Garo Hills, I am telling you. But and in fact, as Roy said, this policy, we can't blame the one particular community being overly represented compared to the other community, because the policy itself allowed. And also, if you see this policy carefully before the passing of this, court order, leading to the implementation of the roster system, in many services you will find that even, that 15% reservation for the general category was not there in many of the services, because the advertisement was always less than than the required number of posts to be reserved. For example, in services where you have the advertisement of only 1 or 2 posts, that 15% for the general category was not there, and therefore this policy was, it has so many confusion. Actually, people right from before, our leaders as well as the people at the ground level, they should have demanded, especially from Garo Hills, this is what I am repeating, they should have demanded the review of the policy way back in the 1990s. I am telling you, but I don't know for what reason. People, they couldn't understand the implication of this. And also I'm stressing again, the roster system should have been implemented way back in the 1990s, not waiting till 2020.
Exactly.
I'll just respond to that, okay? So you're saying adequacy is now there, right? 93% of the jobs are with the ST. So they no need for reservation.
That is your logic.
No, that's your logic. That's not my logic. Let me explain to you my logic. For example, if you remove the reservation now, the adequacy will come down. Because of reservation, they were there.
Sir,
if there is no reservation, they will not be there.
Bhah Iohkam just stated that in the recent MPS, the Khasis, they were placed in the underserved category.
Oh, yes.
So let me come. I think there is a problem of perception and interpretation thereof on the reservation policy itself. That 15% is not reserved. It is open. So in the event of only one post, whoever gets it by virtue of merit.
No.
So no.
I'm telling because of the lack of.
Now, if there is only one post, you cannot make 10 posts. So in the event of one post, so which part of the reservation policy shall apply? 15% and then reserve. So in order of merit, if somebody has already, so it has to go by that more order of merit only. Now, in the event of all those few flip-flops in the process of whole implementation over the years, we are talking about 50 plus years. I think we are abundantly clear that yes, there were certain challenges pertaining to the proper implementation of the policy itself. That is one of the reasons. That's why the court took cognizance of that, and that's how the judicial intervention, impromptu, suo motu, came. It is not that somebody has petitioned, Subsequently, people, I think people joined as they implemented.
But
So,
sister,
about Kharlukhi, I wanted to
you see,
ask you.
why I'm bringing this. Let us be very frank. You see, this has been a political issue. Okay. Then what Bhah Roy has said is very right. If this issue is not tackled like what you suggest also, sir, I don't know what will happen to our state. Like for example, let me be, very frank on this. It has become a political issue. We cannot go back on this. The only thing is what Bhah Roy has suggested is that, well, we have VPP here, you're from the TMC. Well, of course, we don't have a Congress friend. And then we have UDP. I think we have to sit as leaders and come out with a solution that will resolve, or if this keep on being an issue, I don't know what will happen to our state.
Because I believe this will continue, like you said, continue to be taken up during elections.
What he has suggested is very right. Political leaders said, all of them are matured enough, I think. Like what, sir, you have said, you have been, when you were Chief Minister, you have been doing it. I think we have to sit on this.
See, Ivan, I've made a mention right from the beginning that the perception, what is the perception of the people? People are confused. They're in a dilemma. They don't know, actually. But now when these observations have come up from different, from the leaders here, divergent views, then we need to look into these things, no? It is, see, I remember there was a time, it is not that we are discriminating anybody. I said, let us look objectively. There was a time, there was one instance, the examination of these LDs, LDA. I remember we had taken that up. That was a long time back. Out of 282 who qualified, only 13 are Garos. I'll be very frank about this. So that is why I'm saying that, okay, from that point of time, Garos maybe cannot fill up that 40%. All right. But now a point has come when people are talking about this reservation policy and unnecessarily creating friction amongst the different stakeholders, the different communities. That is why we have to come up with a possible, a kind of a direction so that people also will not be confused. No? So we started, when we gave our observation, we started with that 16.4, talking about, inadequacy of representation and services and all that. But then there are other criterias, other things also that you have to look into, sir. When High Court says that, okay, you have to implement the roster system, and then when the government has taken a decision to implement prospectively, we put the question, do we have the roster accounts? How do we, we have to look into that picture also. Can we go back? We have not been reviewing the policy for so many years, and when we're talking about the roster system, so why can't we do it now? Is there a possibility of doing it?
My question is, like, why are we not having a roster system, sir, in place?
I will come to that, I think, precisely. See, there should not be any confusion on these. You cannot count that particular number of vacancies which were not filled up by the members belonging to that particular community for which the reservation was meant for. If, because the policy is already there, if on the succeeding years, for how many years it is? For the succeeding years? 2 years. So that means that if within 2 years it cannot be filled up through a special recruitment, it is subsumed to the normal category. Yeah. So how will you go back to 10 years, 20 years? There is no question. That's why the representation that was probably met before the Honorable Court on behalf of the government, I don't know how they represented. They should have known how to defend the government and decision thereof taken in the preceding years. Because there is no question of saying that, okay, you calculate. I was talking to officers. They were all busy calculating, the backlog. Why was it necessary? Is it necessary in the first instance? It is not necessary. So it is a complete lack of understanding about the whole issue, which led to very faulty representation before the Honorable Court by the government itself. And that's why this mess. And now, in order to do good, we come up with that commission. So that's why it is leading to a Pandora's box. You never know. Because I will repeat, and let us re-stress on the mandate based on which we are talking about this responsibility towards adopting this policy for providing reservation in the services. Only that 16.4, Article 16.4. So even though I want to use some other words, you know, I have to go by what is actually precisely reflected in that particular provision of the Constitution of India. Beyond that, you don't have the mandate, because this whole mandate of legislation itself is mandated only by that specific provision of the Constitution.
Okay, let me just talk about the reservation here. Why we're having the reservation is to ensure that these people who belong to backward classes do not suffer, like, you know, are not ill-treated. But the question here is that there have been instances where they say, like, people, like the Supreme Court had used that term, creamy layer. Those are the people who take advantage of the benefits that the ST get. But then here's a question, like, are the people who really deserve to get these benefits getting it? Or maybe, you know, there are some people who are elite mo, the Supreme Court has also mentioned the creamy layer, and in August this year, the Supreme Court had stated that the creamy layer concept must be applied to them also. So how do you look at this judgment? Because it seems like the jobs have been taken advantage by these people, but so-called the haves.
I think Supreme Court said, okay, the state must formulate a policy on creamy layer. Doesn't mean the court is saying to them to do it. Yeah. It's a direction. No, you can do, you can not do it. And Government of India also decided they will not apply the creamy layer policy. Now, creamy layer, when we talk about people who have already got the benefit. Now, in this parliament itself, I think Dr. Ricky Singhon was there in the parliament when there was one person, MP, from North India who was speaking about, where there are these people, like SC, ST jobs in universities which are not getting filled up, because there are no qualified candidates. But there are SC, ST candidates who studied from the same university, did their PhD from the same university, and not getting filled up. Many of the jobs for SC, ST are not getting filled up because there are no qualified candidates. So when we talk about creamy layer concept, right now doesn't exist. Because see, it's not only about the Khasis in Meghalaya, in India, not about the Garos. They have also other SC, STs. When you take them all together, you see that the creamy layer concept doesn't apply to the SC, ST. Now, but can we do something about it? Let's say in Meghalaya, why should, for example, let's say, if I'm an IAS, why should my child have the same opportunity, or same, let's say, why should my child have the benefit or the advantage over another child who may be, let's say, from Myram, poor family, daily wage worker? So therefore, there's a concept which, because I'm also part of Turno, so we submitted to the expert committee. Let's have a deprivation point system. What does it mean? Let's say, for example, I am from Shillong, IAS family, my child is there, and then there is someone from Mairang or Maukurwat who's, let's say, from a daily wage labor. What I do is I give them extra point. This is what we do in Nehu. I think Batskhem will know about this. If you are a Nehu student, you get 10 points extra compared to other students from outside. That way you give an advantage. So when you do that, you don't give a reservation for that creamy, don't take away the reservation creamy layer, but make sure the people who don't have, let's say, who are more disadvantaged, at least given a chance to come to a certain level. And it is not very difficult.
That one is Article 15 of the Constitution. Okay. So that's why I'm saying everything has to be taken in sync with other provisions in the Constitution. It cannot be in silo. If you go by number of judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court pertaining to the issue of job reservation, then you will see how Honorable Supreme Court has referred to all those relevant sections, relevant articles, of the, particularly the Part 4.
So, so sir, because we all know that there is a confusion and there are people saying, like, if we keep on talking and we keep on poking on this issue, the Supreme Court, instead of just lowering it to 50%, it may just scrap the entire thing. So don't you think the entire debate and the entire bickering around the reservation policy might just catch the attention of the Supreme Court and might just lead us to that situation where, you know, we have to rethink?
See, I think the fact of the matter is that we have to speak about the reservation policy. Reviewing of the present reservation policy is the need of the hour. There are a lot of drawbacks in the reservation policy. To fear that it might be scrutinized by the court, I think it's unfounded, because at the end of the day, if the Supreme Court wants to scrutinize it, it had done long time back. But the law provides, I think the Constitution of India provides for representation of the scheduled tribes like us. I mean, many states has the, if you look at the case of Lakshadweep, I think it has 100% reservation. So it has not been challenged till now. And the people there are Muslim, but they get the reservation under ST category. If you look at other states also. So I don't think we should be having a problem not to speak about it. We have to speak because at the end of the day, had it not been spoken into, or the court had not been looked into, this this problem of roster would not have been found out. I mean, we could have continued with the same process in the next 100 years, and then by that time our friend, we will be getting the job of 80%, and then our friend from Gaharu Hills will get 20% jobs and all that out of the 80%. So this will continue. I mean, it's good that the court has found out the lacuna in the present reservation policy, then the roster system came into place. And I think from now onwards, this problem will not happen anymore. Like our friends from Gaharu Hills will not get their share of 40%. But at the end of the day, I think the review of the reservation policy is needed. How it should be reviewed, what are the points to be reviewed, I think all of us have been given a suggestion. So let the expert committee and the government take a decision where it benefits both the tribes and the Khasi and the
So I'll
Garbals.
ask this question to Kharlukhi, since the NPP is in power. It has a power to initiate changes in the reservation policy. So how do you see the NPP playing in this regard when it comes to the reservation policy? Will it make some changes, or will it still wait for the expert committee to?
You see, we have the expert committee was appointed on the basis of that only. Yeah. So I think the government will have to wait on that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's why I put a question, because this question is very important. I put to both Dr. Myrboh
Let me reply
Dr.
then.
Mukul. So that they, you see, I said, okay, if it is agreed that, like it should be on the basis of population, right? But if it's agreed on the basis of status quo, what will be the reaction? Then doctor, if it's status quo is okay, but if it's the basis of population, because why I'm saying this, because we look in the newspaper, we saw the reaction. So I'm more concerned about this.
You see, what kind of report the commission would give. It is too premature for us to deliberate here. We will wait till the matter comes, and to presume that there will be a civil war kind of situation in the state. Also, that is, I know, political leaders, they speak what they feel it is important for them to speak. It may be represented or not on the ground reality, that is a different story. And I'm telling you, some people, for political survival, they may say one day we need this, then the next day they completely go against what they said earlier also. That has been happened. We have seen that. As I give you the example, some people, because of the political survival, they said that no, we should demand a separate Garu state, and after a few years, after they, somehow the political security is there, then they totally forget about it, and they talk about the unity also. That has happened in our state, and therefore, let us see when the report comes.
Dr. Mukul.
We are talking about policy which is an offshoot of a legislative exercise. So we will have to see from the perspective of the mandate of the Constitution, and how we to ourselves as legislators interpret that particular mandate of the Constitution, based on which we will utilize these for a discussion, so that we will have an exhaustive due diligence, exhaustive discussion, and based on which collective conscious decision can be taken, keeping in mind the overall desire and intent and associated sentiment of the issue is concerned. So as a legislator, we'll have to see the tightrope walking that we have to do as a legislator.
So I would like, because time is running out, so I would like to end this discussion with a closing remark from each one of you. I'll pose this question. We know that, where do we draw the line between injustice and compromise? And can Meghalaya craft a policy where, a policy that heals rather than divide? We'll start with Roy.
See, I think as of now, we have given a suggestion also to the expert committee, but I think at the end of the day, you have to look for a policy which is acceptable to all of us. to both the tribes, say the Khasi, Jaintia or the Garos. But I also have one question in my mind, to Dr. Kharlukhi also to ask. But Mawthoh has brought about the sub-classification, about the sub-classification of scheduled tribes, scheduled castes. And if you look from the point of view of the rationale, we said, inadequate representation of that. Then if you look at your statistics, then there may be one situation also out of that. What if Khasi, Jaintia and Garos are also sub-classified? Then what will happen at that point of time? That is also something which we have to think about, because we don't know what will be the recommendation given by the expert committee. But I fear that if that also happened, keeping in mind the judgment of the Supreme Court, then I think there will be a lot of the friction between the two committees. But at the end of the day, from our side, from me as a citizen of the state, I look for peace, for a peaceful existence of both the communities, and whatever we have given a suggestion, and we have been called, I think, on the next week to appear before the expert committee. I think whatever the recommendation of the committee, it should be acceptable by both the communities of the state.
I'll just respond to him, just in my closing statement also, because she says sub-classification, right? It already has happened, sub-classification, Khasi and Garo separate. It's already been sub-classified.
No, but what my point is that if you look from there will be a further sub-classification, because our friends from Garo Hills are more, are not, if you look at the statistics, they are not at par with us, say if in the job, in the studies. Then there may be a point that we will get just 20%, they'll get 60% reservation. That also may happen if there is. Exactly. That's why I fear. That's why I'm saying that the same question I want to ask Dr. Khalki. But I'm not looking at that.
I agree with you on that.
I'm not looking at that, but that is my point.
Yeah, you can.
See, the whole point about sub-classification, okay, it says it has to be based on empirical data and backwardness. Now let's see the backwardness data between Khasi and Garo. We'll see that Khasi doing very, very well compared to Garo. MPDI, multi-dimensional poverty index, that's the only one where the Khasi have done badly than Garo. But in the rest of it, you combine MPDI with the no poverty, like a target as SDG, you'll find the Garo still very badly. So yes, there's a danger that it may happen, the court may say, if you go to the court, Garos are more backward, we need to give them more, because Khasis are already advanced, right? Now, for me is this, I want, like I said, no, I'm not a politician. I'm not a politician, so what I'm going to do is that I wish that this thing will be sorted in the court. No anger from anyone. It's not this group, it's not against this group. It's the court which is saying it based on the constitution. Let the court handle it. Of course, people will get disappointed at the end of the day, but I'm not a politician. I'm not here to win votes. I say for peace and security, for peace and calmness in the state, let the court handle it. And if you have a problem, go fight with the court. That's it. I want it to go to the court for me. Let the court handle it based on the constitution, and then we will all go back home without fighting with each other. That is my suggestion.
Yeah, Dr. Jemino.
As Dr. Kharlukhi has pointed out right from the beginning, that the cat is out of the bag. Now we are discussing about this. We all share the same concern, right? But I think now it's time for us to introspect and look into the other aspects also. We have been discussing about certain areas, but we have not discussed about, say, recruitment and at the district level. We have not talked about the economically weaker section in the state, BPL, whether there should be some kind of a mechanism also, even amongst the tribal groups, that we can give due weightage to them also. As far as professional courses are concerned, as far as the teaching fraternity is concerned, now all these things we'll have to take into consideration, because there are larger ramifications also if you talk about the reservation policy. Yes, yes.
Bhah Iohkam.
Well, again, my point, I will again come back to the same, like what Roy has suggested, that I think this issue have to be sought by our representative, sit down, because what Batskhem has said, this is political issue. Okay, maybe, that's maybe, I'm not saying. Maybe we agree to what the committee has said. Then maybe some political party will take advantage and say that, let's be very frank, that VPP has, that I don't want. You see, sir, this issue, it affects the state. So, whatever this decision taken by all the legislators, it should end there. Nobody should take advantage of anyone, because I know though, this is politics, I know what will happen.
Dr. Mukul, the closing remarks, sir.
I will confined to my earlier submission, which I have referred to, let us not look at Article 16 in silo. Let us also look at Article 15 of the Constitution of India and also the Part 4 of the Constitution of India. Because we talk about the creamy layer, we talk about people who are more disadvantaged. Now, disadvantage in having access to educational institution, disadvantage to have access to higher education, those are issues. Therefore, Article 15 also provides that space for the legislator, even through an executive order, not necessarily through legislation. So, all these together must have to be seen not in silo, but in its context to each other in totality. Then probably you will be able to understand that where we need to somehow still push people who we consider as in spite of this privilege of having reservation in job are still lagging behind. Why are they even? It is a reality that even whether it is in Khas Hills or it is in Garo Hills, there are areas where people do not have that kind of same privilege to have access to better quality education. Therefore, it actually do not provide them that same, that fair level playing ground because of the privileges and opportunity. That's why I'm saying that the other provisions in the Constitution which require the government to look into that other aspects of providing special provision and providing certain support and trying to, over a period of time, by utilizing these spaces, bring people, to the same level of living standard, and whereby then we say that, okay, the issue of equality has come, issue of social justice have happened, and probably at that point of time, I think this whole debate will slowly, in itself, subside. And at the same time, let us not forget that this whole issue will further exacerbate in terms of its debates and discussion if we do not really look at the most important aspect of our responsibility, that is creating jobs. We must create jobs, and we must ensure that this creation of job allow absorption of the youth who are waiting patiently for job spaces. This must go simultaneously. Therefore, lots of work is there.
Thank you, sir. Batskhem.
My final argument is, as political leaders, they need to encourage the rational thinking in the mind of the people. When I talk about the rational thinking, I mean to say that what is reasonable, what is reasonable should be encouraged among the people, not to sensationalize anything on the basis of emotion. As I told you that we, the BBP, when we make this demand, when we push this demand, it has the logic behind it, and beyond the logic also, we will not succumb to the kind of popular perception. So that is the job of the political leaders, and not to take political advantage. And the second thing, when you talk about a certain population in the state being deprived, this is what I want to say, that you cannot address through reservation. There are certain things that you need to address by improving governance. Educational backwardness in the rural areas cannot be improved through reservation. What the rural population and what those areas of the state that that need upliftment, we have to improve governance. I myself, I come from a rural area. I studied in the rural school. I know what is the pain of the rural areas, and therefore here, when I look at the education scenario in the state, I believe that we cannot improve through reservation. What we need is to improve through governance.
Thank you, Bhah. So friends, we all know that the state reservation policy reflects the state's unique tribal composition and the historical efforts to protect the indigenous community. However, the current imbroglio surrounding the roster system and the demands for policy review has exposed have exposed a deep-seated concern about the ethnic representation and fairness. And different political parties, different organizations, civil society organizations have varying perspectives based on their affiliation. Ti parlok ngangej ba kini gajia kle metas ngi kaba kini kirang ba kila ipen sngo metas ngi halor kata jingdon kam banwanra ya kata ka Rynsan ka ba baro kini ki nong elam jungi seng sai perthai bapher kila banya shong banya perkhat halor kumnu banwanra kata ka policy ka ban ai jing mentoy om tang ya kani kan hun ani kani kan hun re baro kan hun om banwanra kata ka jing phya ha ka jing em ka jongki. We hope that this debate will likely shape the future of this policy, and we do hope that viewers who are watching this program have their if you have any queries or confusion, I do hope that whatever is being discussed today, you've at least received some clarification, and if not, we request you to please you can send us your questions in the comment section, and we'll try to reply to these queries by to our panelists. And yes, but nangay dru bagi parlo ki jingila da pidang don kinu jing bam sngo thula ni jing bam sngo shai phila ban tho ik comments ni jing kli ki jong pia comment section hapo saji seng anom klet ban ai khublei ki rang ba ki jong ki panelists ki bla pon poi hang ni ban don beta ka ni program jongi. I once again like to extend my gratitude to each and every one of you for sparing your time to be here with us and to talk about this issue which requires decision, and yes, like you have mentioned, that it requires a lot of deliberation from everyone, from all the stakeholders, to ensure that this policy is a policy that heals and not divide. Ti parlo ka tung ila poish bakod ta ngini shem yang pi hakawai pa kapor kublai kapor jong pi baro.